So if our goal for our students is to help them kind of achieve this insider status into our disciplines, education researchers are really starting to argue that the knowledge that we're asking them to develop also needs to be supplemented with the tools and the methods. So in order for them to start thinking like a philosopher, environmental scientist, whatever, we have to get them to start practicing like those things. This idea of active learning is probably not new to you guys, but I think what researchers are really just lately starting to emphasize is that this kind of knowledge, development of knowledge through practice, is very discipline specific. So we want to argue that writing is one of the most important tools for helping your students develop these habits of disciplinary practice. And I'm going to tell you why in just a few minutes. But first, we have to talk a little bit about a very common tradition at this and most universities, which is the historical conception that writing is a very generic and generalizable skill, meaning it looks the same in all disciplines, so therefore we can centralize our writing instruction in one place, in the English department. The first problem with this idea is with something called transfer.
So transfer can be problematic because we're assuming here that students can recognize the similarities between situations. And so students can see what they did in their English 101 class and then transfer that and bring it into a new context, which is often a different major. You know, most students don't become English majors.
I think, though, that even if transfer was happening kind of as swimmingly as we hope and expect it to, there's still a problem with it, though, because it still rests on the assumption that the generic skills they're being taught apply equally across disciplines.
What we keep coming back to and we'd like you to consider is what kind of knowledge is valued in your course, in your discipline, and what is your learning objective? Because at the end of the day, hopefully the writing is helping students to achieve that thinking like and practicing like your disciplinary person.
So let me just talk about a few things that a few reasons why writing can help us build discipline-specific knowledge in our disciplines. So first, learning happens while writing happens. If any of you have ever sat down to write an essay or an article and you realize as you're typing, wow, I don't believe the same thing that I believed when I sat down to write this essay. I think something kind of different now. You can know that the learning process is actually happening while we're writing. As the novelist Flannery O'Connor once famously said, I write because I don't know what I think until I read what I say. Secondly, writing is participation in practice. It's doing what the experts do. Third, writing provides, it's very convenient, it provides a permanent record that we can consult after the fact. And we can, which I argue increases our awareness of the conventions of the discipline. So we as teachers can ask our students to ask themselves, did I write it like the experts, and why or why not?
I always go back to structure, like how papers are organized. You know, some disciplines is very specific. The intro needs to do this. The next section, the purpose needs to go this way. The methods have to be described in this way. And in that field, you would want to explain then kind of how that would happen. But having that kind of structure, even little things like do your thesis in linguistics, does it go at the first sentence, the end of the paragraph, at the end of the first section? Differences, even little things like that, can really help a student key into what are your standards, what are the discipline-specific things that you do, and you can then hopefully start figuring out, okay, why do we do it that way? Why do we want to set up 3 paragraphs of explanation before we get into our thesis statement? Or why do we want our thesis statement, our hypothesis at the very first sentence? What is the rhetorical purpose there?
Last, writing is a contribution to a body of knowledge. So if we want our students to achieve this kind of insider status, creating texts enables them to kind of immerse themselves within and become members of our fields.